Equally.
I think your garden is wonderful, and I would be very, very surprised and disappointed if you didn't get the Best in Show award.
Don't jinx it, Tom. Don't jinx it.
Can you tell me where the idea began?
Well, I was initially approached by MEDITE SMARTPLY, who have developed and made this new exterior grade MDF. So it's guaranteed 50 years outdoors and 25 years below ground. And they've developed it because of the need for sustainable materials in the building industry. It encaptures carbon for that whole period of its 50 years, whereas the likes of bricks and mortar do not. They expend carbon. And it's made from the arisings of the forest industry, so it's not actually taking any traditional timber out of the marketplace. It's using the side branches, etc. So overall, it's an incredibly sustainable material. But it's a sheet material that's maximum 18 mil deep. When you're trying to show how you can use this in a legacy campaign in a really imaginative way, go big or go home. So actually I was inspired by some vertical rock face that I saw off the beach in Cornwall. Very thin slices, if you like, of vertical rock strata.
Was it sandstone or was it
I guess to be honest with you, I don't know. However, I wanted a bigger conversation than that, and I've always been inspired by Isambard and Brunel and that period. So in fact, if you look back, the last great period of building innovation was the Industrial Revolution. And now we're looking at, in the future, the need to look at a new building revolution about making sure that we are sustainable and that we're not damaging the environment. So I wanted somehow to have a conversation between the two. So it does hark back to a sort of Victorian garden, forest, grotto, but also to the materials, the great mammoth, brutal feel of some of the steelwork.
So from the material and aesthetic, what use did you imagine for this thing?
Well, it was always intended that whatever I create has to go on to an afterlife.
Good.
And so it was always devised that this was going to have a use as an outdoor classroom or education, or as a piece to look at sustainable materials and how they work. So it's actually going to an environmental education charity called Ando the Trees United. And there are two options. It's either going into a school near where I live, or it's going into their forests near Andover. Either way, it will be used as a teaching base, hence some of the arrangement of the sort of throne seat and an individual seat opposite, so people can gather. I would quite like, I'd love it to be in either environment, and I think it would work really well in both.
Of the designs of yours I've seen at Chelsea, of which there are many, the one I see the most kinship with is the Bradstone. Was it Bradstone?
Yes.
The rain gun.
Yes.
Where the water
Yes.
level went
Yes.
up and down.
Absolutely.
Because there as well, you work with the materials and the design came from the function.
Yes. I really enjoy doing that because it requires you to think outside the box. And I like reuse, recycle. And I think it's more fun. You can take something and go, what can I make of this? And so imagination is the only thing that stops you.
Standing a good way back, I think that where modern garden design went wrong was in the 1920s, when eventually they drew inspiration from static modernism, from non-green and neoplasticism, instead of from constructivism, where the aesthetic spatial design comes from the function.
Yes. No, absolutely, I would agree with all that. And
so what about the planting?
So the planting addresses several things. It's a place setting, so it's edge of forest. So that's why we have the Picea Morocco, we have the Pinus sylvestris, the Pinus nigra, because these are the trees that are used in the production of this material. So edge of forest, then with the deciduous native species, the Betula pendula, the Populus tremula, not native but still used in the industry. There is hazel, and then an understory of very textural woodland edge planting that represents both our native species, and we've got buttercup running through the whole thing, down to quite exotic species, which are being used more commonly because of climate change. But it's very textural, not a lot of colour, very green, green's a colour, but because too much colour evokes too much emotion, and you can take away from that sense of tranquility and peace. So that's a very positive thought process in what I'm doing, is to, because it's quite a busy, quite dramatic garden, is to calm you down and to feel quite relaxed when you're here.
An interesting thing for me is that you've made a lot of use of native, low-key plants, and yet it's beautiful. Whereas what one quite often sees is the use of native plants as a token.
Yes.
Without the aesthetic success.
For me, it's always been that people feel native plants have to be used in, I don't know what the word is, they're trying to turn them, they don't like them because they're not ornamental enough, and so they don't, but it's how you use them. And it's like a gallery. If you have too many good paintings on one wall, they all counteract each other. So actually you need a lot of negative, calm, quiet planting to show off the ones that you really want to spring to life. I've always believed that people try and be too busy, too clever, well, clever's the wrong word, but showcase more ornamental plants. And actually, they just neutralise each other. You know, we've got Lanicera pileata in this garden, you know, the classic of the car parks and the, you know, around towns and cities. But it all has its place.
One final comment on the success of your design, which is, I think you must have created the most peaceful place in Chelsea today. And that noise, the other side of the avenue from here, it's attacking you,
yes,
but you're defending it.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, the sound of the water does help, because you kind of focus on it a bit. But yeah, well, thank you, Tom.
On behalf of another person, I just been talking to Joe, and I asked him the question about sustainability in private domestic gardens, native plants, rewilding, which is the RHS scheme, in private domestic gardens. How practical is it, and how popular is it?
Well, the trouble is, most people will just think it's a right royal mess, but it is about how you use them. So I'm a great believer that, you know, rewilding is potentially very important, but it's how you use things. And you don't have to, one thinks rewilding is like absolutely no relationship with man, but there is always a relationship with man, because